Hello, and welcome to Riverside Reflections. I'm Denise Mananis, your host today, and for our wonderful special guest today, we have Janine O'Donnell, who is our Associate Vice President of Medical Operations, Pharmacy, and Engineering. So welcome, Janine.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Janine, tell me a little bit about, where you're from, what the path was, how you got to be at St. John's.
Sure. I was born and raised here in Yonkers, New York, and I was attending St. John's University for my pharmacy doctorate degree. And St. John's Hospital was listed as a location for me to be able to perform my clinical rotations that were required for the program. So I applied to that in 2005. I had completed those, and I fell in love with the institution. So I quickly applied for a technician job, which I did while I finished my doctorate. And then in 2006, when I became licensed, I took a job here as a clinical pharmacist.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
So can you just go through sort of what happened after you became a staff pharmacist? Because I don't think you stayed a staff pharmacist too long.
No, I actually moved into management fairly quickly. I think it was actually within the first year. A clinical manager position had opened in the pharmacy, which I applied for and did take. I stayed being a clinical manager for a few years, and then there was an opportunity to become an associate director, and then I became director. Yeah, there was two of us.
Yes, I do remember. So you became the director, then you became the senior director.
I did. I became senior director after COVID. I started to take on a little bit more responsibilities outside of the pharmacy department. I was promoted to senior director. At that time, I started working with the clinic, the vaccine clinic, and I started to shadow a little bit in wound care and work on budgets of other departments.
So what's your degree?
I have a doctorate in pharmacy.
Of course you do. Okay, so you came back, so you started as a tech, and then you got your degree, and then you were hired
as a clinical pharmacist.
Okay.
And then I moved into clinical manager. And then I was associate director, and then director, and then senior director.
Yeah. So you've been climbing the pharmacy ladder.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your time in the pharmacy and the things. So healthcare has changed. We all know it's changed over the last 20 years. Tell me a little bit about the things that you brought to the pharmacy that have a patient-centric focus.
So one of our big focuses in the pharmacy when I was the director there was getting the pharmacist more out on the units doing direct patient care. The old model of pharmacy is to kind of be in the basement behind the scenes, processing prescriptions. But modern pharmacy, they should be part of the multidisciplinary team and really engaging with the patients. So we have pharmacists rounding on the units, engaging with the patients, helping on admission and also on discharge. We also rolled out a Meds to Beds program with our partnership with Sunlight Pharmacy. So patients here, when they're leaving on discharge, could have their medications with them.
That's very exciting. How long has that program been in place now? A while.
It's been probably about 6-7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's such a great thing not to have to leave the building and then go find, when you've been ill, to go find your meds or get them and get them home and get them.
Yes, and it also helps with insurances too, because as we all know, there could be blocks on your insurance that prevent you from getting certain medications. So it's easier for us to sort that all out while you're still an inpatient here, so we can ensure you have the right medications when you leave.
Yeah, so I know that you're not actively in the pharmacy now, and I know that the pharmacy directors do report into you, but there is a new program that pharmacy just brought in that is very community focused. You want to talk about that?
So we have two new programs that we brought in within the last year or two. One is we partnered with New York State as part of the opioid prevention program. And we have Narcan available for our ED patients that are being discharged that are at a high risk for overdose. We also implemented the drug take back program, which is centered in our lobbies, so community members could come and dispose of medications that they no longer need.
In a safe manner.
In a safe
Because
manner.
I'm sure everyone out there does what I do. Look at the medicine bottle and go, I don't think I should throw that in the toilet, or
Yeah.
maybe
Well,
I should put it in the garbage.
we want to save our waterway systems.
Yes.
And also prevent diversion, so it's not getting into the wrong hands, especially children,
Right.
or drug seekers.
All right. So that's a great program. Okay. So you made it to senior director in the pharmacy, and maybe it's 2 years.
So over
Approximately 2 years.
the COVID pandemic, as we all know, it was all hands on deck for everything.
That's right.
So I started being asked to do some additional projects and stuff outside of the pharmacy to get us through that time. And it was probably the COVID vaccine clinic that was at the end of 2020 when the vaccines became available, is when I really started to move into different areas, because we almost had to create a separate department that was just going to handle vaccinating the public.
Right. So you then, post-COVID, you took a role, you added a responsibility to your many responsibilities, medical operations.
Yes.
All right. So you started working with clinical departments. Let's talk about them one at a time. So radiology is a big department here. So tell me a little bit about radiology at St. John's.
So we offer all different modalities here, so a patient really could come here for all their care. We are in the process of rolling out a brand new IR suite
Which means what?
for interventional radiology, so that they could get minor procedures here done right here in the building in real time. We are also going to be expanding over the next 12 months, adding an open MRI unit. That is a need here in the public for patients that have anxiety or claustrophobia, and also replacing our current MRI, and we have a new CT coming here and at Dobbs Ferry campus.
That's very exciting news, and I know that the whole department has undergone a whole refresh. So you come in and it's very modern and very clean and very light and bright. But I wanted to talk about, more importantly, the reason that people should choose to come to a facility such as St. John's for those kinds of exams. So can you tell me about what is involved in how the hospital is required to present these services?
So for radiology, and you'll see it across most of the ancillary departments, there are strict criteria that each department has to follow, not only on the equipment, meeting certain standards and quality assurance testing, but also on the staff, who usually has to be credentialed and licensed by their professional board to allow them to perform those tests. So in radiology, our staff is all licensed and credentialed in each of their modalities, and the same with our equipment.
And so then the department is then certified by the American College of Radiology.
Yes.
So that's an important designation to achieve.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So it speaks to our quality and our patient safety.
Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. So moving from radiology, because that's a lot of news and a lot of great stuff happening there. So I know you've been busy. Cardiology. Tell us about what's new there.
Cardiology, we're actually at the end of this month rolling out all new Holter monitor equipment. So patients coming here either through the ED or as outpatients will get brand new Holter monitor equipment for them to be able to go home and be monitored and then come back and overseen by their cardiologist.
That's wonderful. Respiratory, which is a department that people don't seem to connect too much with, but there are real things they do that are very accessible to our community. So let's talk about respiratory.
Yeah, so not only on the inpatient side, because obviously they visit our inpatients, but we offer multiple outpatient services. You could come here for PFTs, you could come here for
What's a PFT?
Pulmonary function test. You could come here for a sleep study. You could come here for different things that have to do with your respiratory care, and you'll be seen by a pulmonologist and overseen by our respiratory therapist.
Can you talk a little bit about pulmonary rehab?
So pulmonary rehab is a great outpatient service that usually before your first appointment, you need to go through a series of testing to make sure that you're capable to perform it. And then you come here and you're monitored by a respiratory therapist, and you're going through your exercises, whether they're on a treadmill or another device, and they're monitoring you the whole time to monitor your ability and your function.
Very nice. I have to just sort of call them out because that poor team during COVID given that COVID is a respiratory illness, they really were, along with our nursing staff and the nurse aides and all of the people who were in patient care, they just really took it on the chin. I mean, they had a tough go through COVID, and so I admire that department a lot.
Yeah.
They're really something. Okay, so now moving on to physical therapy. So we have inpatient physical therapy, obviously, with orthopedic patients or anybody who post-surgical, getting out of bed, walking, all of that. But we do have a wonderful outpatient.
Yeah, in our Boyce Thompson building, we have a beautiful outpatient physical therapy location on the second floor. And all the physical therapists there have their doctorate, and they try to offer the most modern and updated physical therapy care. We have hot and cold therapy offerings. We have the TEDs. We have new equipment there. I think a lot of people don't realize that we have that location there because it is off-site.
Right. But they're wonderful too. I'm a fan. What can I say? I can't help myself.
Yeah, they're a nice, unique group of people. It's a small staff. It's a tight staff. They've all been working together for years.
That's lovely. The laboratory, another department that's sort of down underneath all of the action. Let's talk about the lab.
So yes, they're a little bit more behind the scenes except for the phlebotomist. But their test monthly, they probably service about 60,000 tests a month between our different campuses. So I always call them the little engine that could. We recently rolled out Mobile Lab, which is a barcode scanning mechanism that prevents mislabeling of specimens.
So can you talk about the success of that program?
Yeah, so up to date, we've had 0 mislabeled specimens.
Yay!
Yep.
You like that? Yeah, they're a nice crew too.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about wound healing, which I know is another new service that you've just taken on. What's going on there?
Yeah, so we just transitioned. Dr. Tenenbaum is now our medical leader there. And we service about 500 plus visits a month for our community, primarily diabetic patients that suffer from wounds.
Wow. So I'm just want to bring that full circle. Years and years and too many years ago, Dr. Tannenbaum was one of the physicians, vascular surgeons who opened the wound center with us.
Yes, a
and
full circle.
So we got him to come home.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So that's really wonderful. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about, I've worked here a long time, and the other guests that we've had on the show, they talk a little bit about what their passion is, their why. I know my why. What is your why? Why did you gravitate to healthcare, St. John's?
So I've always enjoyed sciences. My strength is math, but I actually always enjoyed the sciences. So I knew from a pretty early age I wanted to go into healthcare. I wasn't sure in which direction I wanted to go. At 16, I was working as a cashier in a pharmacy. And a woman had come in, an elderly woman, and she couldn't afford her prescriptions. And she actually broke down in tears at the register saying she worked her whole life and she can't understand why she can't afford her prescriptions. And I think it was that moment forward, I knew I wanted to be a pharmacist. And then I, finished high school and quickly enrolled in my doctorate program for pharmacy. And then once I was here, it opened doors. I've always been very thankful to St. John's to give me opportunities outside of pharmacy. And I moved more into the leadership role. But that is my why. Like I said, I always kind of knew I wanted to do healthcare, but the specifics of pharmacy came from that. I'll always remember that moment she started crying.
It's funny how people have those epiphany moments, that sort of goes, oh, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah.
Thank you for
sharing.
sharing.
I was a young girl,
Yeah.
16, at the counter, cashier. So
I love that story. Thanks for sharing it. So thank you today for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And thank all of you for joining us during our first season of Riverside Reflections. I would like to wish you all a very wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Looking forward to seeing you for season 2 next year.